A lot of people assume that adding solar panels to their Kansas City home is a guaranteed win. But what if I told you that this widely held belief might actually be costing homeowners much more than they think? In this video, we're here to shatter the misconceptions and reveal the hard truths about solar investments. So stay tuned, because if you're not prepared, you might be in for a shocking surprise. In this video, again, we're going to explore solar panels in Kansas City. We will discover why there is so much talk about solar panels, and then we will uncover the cold hard facts that may change your mind about solar panels here in Kansas City. Many of our clients and other real estate agents often contact me to discuss whether or not solar will actually make a house sell for more, and whether or not adding solar is actually a good investment for them. Now, I'm a big believer in finding solutions for energy, but I'm not being asked whether I think that solar is a good thing for the planet. I'm being asked whether or not adding solar panels to a house makes sense. Is it cost effective? Does it increase the value of my home? And other questions that should be asked, but most don't even know to ask them. Now, I'm an appraiser and a broker here in Kansas City. I first want to show you the actual contributing value of solar panels and really any feature of a home. This is how we do it as appraisers. So many people have a misconception of how appraisers determine the value of a home, and I just like to explain that the math leads me to my conclusion. If I do my job right, there really isn't much opinion left to be had. Now, even though solar is becoming more popular, you may be surprised to hear that homes with solar panels in Kansas City make up less than 1% of the overall sales market. Now, in Johnson County, for instance, only 16 out of 2,786 sales had solar panels. That's about 0.5%. Now, this is not surprising, due largely to the overwhelming amount of homeowners associations in this area that limit the ability to add solar. Jackson County had 0.7%, so less than 1% again, 0.7%, which was 31 out of 4,211 sales. The Northland, Clay, and Platte County together had the highest percentage of about 1.5%, or 31 out of 2,068 sales. So I've decided to select a recent sale that falls right in the median price point, right in the center of the Northland, and that's because that's the hottest spot in the whole city for solar. I think that's the best place to go and find a sale, because that's where the strongest market's going to be for one of these. So this would be the best case scenario, I would say, in the Kansas City market. When we do an appraisal, we are not concerned with the cost of something. We're really only concerned about its contributory value, what it does to the value of the property. So there is no hard and fast rule, so we have to look to the market to find out what the market is actually telling us. Now, if you look here at the grid, you'll see that I have 4 sales here that are all what I would consider to be very similar. They're all ranch plans, they're all within like the same general subdivision. And then comp 5 and 6, they were not as similar. They are a split entry plan and a 2-story plan. So they're a slightly different floor plan, but we've included them because they were the most recent, similar, and proximate sales that also came with solar. So again, the first 4 don't have solar. I had to go out into the market, find 2 properties ideally that have solar as well. So what I'm going to show you first is how we extract an adjustment, and then I'll show you exactly how we come up with the one that we're going to use and extract for the value of a solar panel. Now, if you look here at comp 1, 2, 3, and 4, comp 1, adjusts right now at 381, 857. Comp 2 is 351. 3 is 381, comp 4 is 381. So comp 2 is the oddball of the 4. Why is it? The market's telling us something. And when I look at it, comp 2 is in average condition while the other properties are in good or good average condition. Now, when we look at that again, 381, 351, 381, I'm gonna go ahead and take this adjustment out. We'll just show you how that looks as well there. And I found that comp 4 was the same thing. It wasn't quite as dated, but it had some dirty carpet, honestly, is what I saw. I saw some stains on the carpet. So when I looked at that, that made sense to make a $5,000 adjustment for the carpet. But this one here was more like a $30,000 adjustment. Now, what's interesting about that, potentially that might cost $50,000 to bring that property in line with the others. Now, if I were sitting down with that seller and they asked, what should I do to improve my property? I would do this exact same analysis. The cost to repaint, carpet, update the kitchen, countertops, all that's $50,000, but the improvement in value is only $30,000. And you can see here, if I were to apply a $50,000 adjustment, saying as if cost were the same as value, that you can see that it automatically pulls that number out of line of the others. And again, if I go back and apply $30,000, it brings it right in line. So that's the market telling us that the value of that condition is only $30,000, regardless of what it costs to actually change the value of it. So if the juice isn't worth the squeeze, we wouldn't do it. So let's apply $25,000 adjustment, because that's what solar generally costs right now. So let's see what the actual cost is when we plug it in here. So if we added $25,000 to the sales that do not have solar, because we're trying to bring them up to match our subject, you can see very quickly that that brings those comps into the 406 range, while the comps that have solar are currently at 387, 388. So we know that the market's telling us that that's not the correct number, even if that might be the actual cost to install solar on a property. Now, I know the number, I've already done the math, it's $6,500. So we can take $6,500, plug it in across here, and now all of our comps are adjusting in that 388, 387 range. And that's really all of our opinion. If we do our job correctly as appraisers, we squeeze that range so tight that we really don't have a whole lot of room for opinion. And in this situation, I would say that the property's a $388,000 property, which this property did sell for $390. My numbers fall at $388, and I haven't been through the property. There's probably something that would be there to justify the $390 price. We're that close to it. I wouldn't say that's anything to worry about. By and large, I can show here that $6,500 is a reasonable contributory value of a solar panel system to a house in a median priced market in our city. So this is a $390,000, $400,000 market that we're doing this in. That's very much in line with the median for the entire city. I think that's a very good indicator of what this is. So again, if you spent $25,000 on a solar panel, you can expect that it's going to increase the value of your property about $6,500. If you pay attention to what they're doing in new construction, you of course don't see solar on the roofs of new construction. And that's a very good indicator that there's not a return on doing it, or the builders would be doing it too. Even though I know it's more efficient and builders are trying to build greener and more efficient homes, currently it still does not make financial sense for the installation of solar purely on the increase in value. They're building it and selling it day one. They're not going to see the gains of it over the years. Now, if you'd like to see a video that really goes deep into how appraisals work, comment down below and I'd be happy to do that for you. So do solar panels increase the value of a home in Kansas City? And using this information from the area of the city with the most amount of solar panels, we can see that the contributory value for a $390,000 home was about $6,500. That's 26% of the original cost to install, if that original cost was $25,000. Now, in my experience, writing appraisals, this is pretty typical. Lower price point homes generally have less contributory value, and higher priced homes have a little more contributory value. But in all aspects that I've encountered, the cost of solar is not equivalent to the contributory value gained, and it's not even close. We've had several clients reach out asking about installing solar, knowing that they had the intent to move in the next 2 to 3 years. So especially for anyone who may be in that situation, there is a lot of risk considering the salespeople for solar companies likely are not bringing these things to your attention. Now, most people buying a solar panel system, they're going to be financing it, leasing the system, or using a PPA, which is similar to a lease, but the PPA owns the equipment and then charges the owner a set monthly fee. In all of these scenarios, the seller has some hoops to jump through if they want to sell their property. Now, in a lease or a PPA, the seller has to get the buyer to agree to take on the additional monthly costs and then get the buyer to qualify. Keep in mind, many buyers, they're shopping at the top, or at least the near the top of their affordability and their pre-approval. So a buyer would now not only have to qualify for the home, but they'd also have to qualify for an additional loan or additional payment at the same time they are trying to finance a home. This can dramatically affect buyer affordability, and that's if the buyers even want solar. Remember, in most of Kansas City, less than 1% of the market has solar, so solar is not common, and that brings fears to buyers who are not early adopters. When we're marketing a property, we want to attract the largest pool of buyers to bring the maximum value for your property. After we reduce the pool by eliminating buyers who are aesthetically turned off by solar or the buyers who are scared of maintenance costs, we then have to convince the remaining buyers to take on an additional loan. Again, they could take that money and buy more of a house, and usually that's what they're thinking. Now, the subject we used earlier included an $85 a month fee that the buyer had to accept in order to buy the property. Also, they'd have to deal with the remainder of the loan and deal with reselling the property later, which they may think would be a headache. Now, also be very careful to check transfer costs. Usually there are fees associated with the transfer and recording, and a buyer may not be comfortable completing this paperwork. Keep in mind another thing, at the end of these transactions, you can find yourself in a very odd standoff. The buyer doesn't want to sign and take the liability of the solar panels when they don't own the house yet. The seller also doesn't want to sell the house and still have the solar panels in their name. Generally, title companies don't handle this part because this is not necessarily part of real estate when we're transferring that liability. So you can find yourself in a standoff. The buyer may require that the seller do that transfer after the sale, and if the buyer doesn't actually follow through, the seller could find themselves in a position of liability. That, again, leaves a lot of risk on the table. You don't want to still be liable for someone else's solar panels is what I'm getting at. Your only other option is to go ahead and pay the panels off in full or buy out the lease. However, that requires you to have the full amount in cash in order to pay it off. And we find that many of the clients we've worked with that have had solar panels, they just don't have an extra $20,000 lying around. Yes, we can sell homes with solar panels, and we do, but it's important to know that they can adversely affect the marketability, which can in turn diminish the property's value or at least cause longer than ideal marketing time. Now, I don't want to dive too deep into the cost savings of solar because understanding the brackets with Evergy can be quite confusing, and now with multiple plans to choose from, it makes it even harder to truly compare apples to apples. But of the clients that I've helped explore their options, I can tell you that when we do the math, it's not quite the home run that the salesperson led them to believe it would be. The average interest rate on a solar loan right now, according to the Federal Reserve, is 12.17%. Terms run from 10 to 25 years, but most people, they're trying to reduce their monthly payments, so an overwhelming majority choose to take the 25-year term, which coincidentally coincides with the typical life expectancy of a system, which is designed to last 25 to 30 years. Of course, that 25 to 30 years means working. It doesn't mean efficiency because they only warranty these up to the 20-year mark for efficiency, not on parts, but just efficiency, and they say they're going to be 80% efficient or better at year 20. That does show you that over time, their efficiency does diminish. Now, that pretty much means you'll be making a payment nearly every year that you own a solar panel system. So keep in mind the average length of homeownership is only 12 years, so that means very few will own their home long enough to even see the rewards. According to Forbes, the average electric bill in Missouri is $118.55. The subject in our report, again, earlier we talked about paid $85 a month in financing, plus it said that they averaged an additional $22 a month in electricity on a level pay plan. They're averaging about $107 a month, which means they're only saving $11 over the state average. Now, this is pretty common with many of our clients that we've helped. Couple that with the risks and the limited chance you'll ever have the loan paid off or buy out a lease, the juice just isn't worth the squeeze in my opinion. And trust me, I really want to like solar, and I hate paying my electric bill as much as anyone. As we discussed, the typical lifespan of a solar panel system is 25 to 30 years. Keep in mind that that does not mean solar panels are simply set it and forget it items. In Kansas City, we have frequent changes in weather. We have high winds, hail, bitter cold, and very hot days. All of these changes can severely impact the lifespan and need for costly repairs on your system. Each solar company has different warranty options, and depending on the system, you may be at the mercy of the company for repair, especially if you're leasing it. Many of our clients had no idea that the panels would need to be regularly cleaned, otherwise they would not be efficient. Dust and water residue can dramatically affect their ability to capture sunlight. A typical house costs between $300 and $600 a year to have the solar panels cleaned. That's $25 to $50 a month if you only need them cleaned quarterly. Now, in Kansas City, it's not uncommon to need them cleaned more regularly if it's dusty or there's a lot of pollen in the air, which we have a lot of both. Those numbers completely negate the benefit of having solar economically if we were to only use that $11 a month savings. A lot of our clients never consider the impact on their insurance. So insurance companies, they're not opposed to clean energy. It's simply not a sound business decision for them to provide coverage on solar panels. Why? Well, the primary reason lies in the substantial claims cost associated with solar PV arrays, which makes insurance companies hesitant to embrace them. The complexities involved extend beyond merely removing and then reinstalling the solar panels during a roof replacement. For insurance companies, the expenses associated with roofs fitted with solar panels are significant, and they include roof replacement costs where the solar panels were installed, expenses related to the solar panels themselves, storage fees, typically spanning about 3 months, which can amount to an average of $5,000 just for storing the panels. Then there's costs associated with moving the panels to storage facilities, bringing them back, while the roof replacement actually takes place. Now, insurance company providers quickly recognize that covering roofs with solar panels pose an immediate liability. As a result, if they do decide to provide coverage for such cases, they impose a premium to mitigate these substantial costs. While insurance is available, it's important to note that coverage limitations may vary from one company to another, so you definitely want to reach out and find out if they cover it, if you need to get an additional rider, and keep in mind, those additional premiums are going to eat into any of the savings that solar is supposed to be bringing in the first place. When it comes to the actual installation, your roof may have came with a warranty. So check carefully that the installation of solar panels, that they don't terminate your warranty coverage. Not only do the shingles have a warranty, but your roofer might have put a warranty on there. And I guarantee you, they are not going to cover any damages that occur, whether it's their fault or not, once those solar panels are mounted. So you wanna make sure that if you do this, you wanna get a roofer that's okay with it. But again, most of them are not gonna be okay with warranting another installer's work. Further, keep in mind the companies that you actually get the solar panels through, they don't do the installs themselves. They usually find a third party to do that. So when you have a problem later with install, it's not uncommon for them to turn around and say, we sell the systems, but we do not install them. Just be aware that there's times where you could run into that very frustrating situation where one contractor is simply blaming another. Now, roofers aim to use flashing to divert water. When they're doing a roof, they're not just plugging holes, they're using flashing. It allows the water to run over, and it would require water to run uphill for a roof to get wet. That's the way that roofs work. Now, in my experience, we've encountered installations where years later, the roof was found to be leaking because the solar panels, they were just lagged into the roof and then they were caulked. Caulk eventually fails and the homeowner may find themselves where they have a roof that's leaking, the insurance company unwilling to pay coverage because of that material alteration, a roofer that won't repair it because somebody else has done an install on top of it, and potentially an installing company that's no longer around. It's very expensive to do this if you don't have any of that coverage. Roofs in Kansas City, while rated for up to 40 years, they rarely last that long due to our weather. We have hail, we have wind, and we have a lot of rain, but it's primarily hail damage that takes roofs out before they're 40 years old. And chances of you not getting hit with a hailstorm in the next 30 years is slim to none. It's a tough decision, but if you're installing panels and you intend to have them in place for the next 25 to 30 years, it makes sense to go ahead and time it with a new roof. You want to get that roof at the same time so they last about the same amount of time. You really don't want to pay out-of-pocket expense to put a roof on and then have an installer put holes right inside of a brand new roof. And at the same time, you don't really want to take on the expensive solar panels and mount them to a roof that may need to be replaced in the next 10 years. There's a lot of costs, like we said, in removal, storage, and reinstallation. Not always are roofs going to be replaced by an insurance company. They could be at the end of their economic life, or your insurance company might have actual cash value only, and you're going to be paying a lot of money out of pocket to change these out. Those are things that a lot of our clients don't think about until it's a problem. Now, solar energy, it's an exciting concept and one that I'm sure will only continue to improve. Companies like Tesla, who offer solar roofs with the actual panels built into the shingles themselves, they're creating an alternate solution that could reduce the risk of solar panels. But when you run the numbers and discover that the contributory value to your home, the cost to finance or lease, the effect on marketability, all the headaches of transferring to a new owner, maintenance costs, potential repair costs, costs, potential damage to your roof, and limited insurance options with increased premiums, I just can't find the pathway to where solar panels financially outweigh the risks, and generally I'm keen to advise my clients to avoid solar panels altogether. Of course, you do your own due diligence, and there are of course people out there who are satisfied with their decision, but I personally have not been able to prove it in the math, and when we look at these risks that only increase as the units age, solar panels continue to be something I'm excited about someday, just not until it makes sense financially. If you think I've missed something or you think I'm flat out wrong, go ahead and comment down below. I'd love to have the discussion with you. And if you're thinking about moving to Kansas City and you'd like to have an expert in your corner, that's what we do. So reach out to our team, Plains Paris, immediately at 816-439-8705. Give us a call, text, email, whatever is best for you. We're here to help make your transition to Kansas City a smooth one. We're here to watch out for the things that you may not know to be watching out for, and we're here to help you make smart moves in real estate.